Hello and welcome. Today we'll take you into the dynamic field of editing pictures for newspapers and magazines. This is an exciting and creative area where we communicate with photographs. I am Sakshi Mandwal and our subject expert today is Radhika Khanna, Assistant Professor in Pondicherry University. In this session, we start with the power of pictures as a medium of communication. We then discuss the working of photojournalists and the qualities required to succeed. We'll also look at the working of photo editors and the ethical considerations to be followed. All through, we will share some of the best pictures taken by most prominent photojournalists. We'll conclude with how to publish your pictures and make a career in this field. Introduction. Photojournalism is a term which has many definitions. It is a kind of journalism where we use photographs to report news events. It is widely accepted that photojournalism is photography serving a descriptive purpose with the function of recording and reporting things as they are. In the earlier sessions, we have seen how photojournalism emerged in the world and specifically in India, and also the elements and principles that govern photography. The history of photojournalism is rich with examples that exemplify the power of pictures in terms of the impact it had on its audience. Photojournalism was the beginning of visual journalism, where the news was reported not in words but was captured as photographs. Power of pictures. Because of the tremendous advance in photography and its increasing popularity, pictures from films, television, video and digital media are all claiming our attention. The inventory started in 1839 when the first photograph was taken. Some of the most important pictures that newspapers and magazines have brought to the attention for over 100 years included photographs of important events, both happy and sad. For example, the sinking of the Titanic in 1912 was reported amongst many others in New Yorker. In 1930s, the economic depression that originated in the US was covered extensively, during which time Dorothea Lange's photograph titled "The Migrant Mother" drew a lot of attention and appreciation. War photographers like Robert Capa, Don McCullin, Nick Uti and Margaret Bourke-White went out of their way to cover wars. The photographs that they clicked were widely published in newspapers and magazines, which caught the attention of the people from all over the world. These photographs showed the true horrors of the war to the world. The pictures for newspapers and magazines don't always have to be about historic events or politically important moments. Apart from what is called spot news, there are other kinds of stories like features and articles on a wide range of subjects, including sports, wildlife, fashion, or even food. There can be pictures depicting festivals and celebrations. Medium of communication. Newspapers and magazines act as a media for communication. Newspapers are usually published and delivered every day, whereas magazines are weekly, bi-weekly, or sometimes even monthly. Newspapers are generally grouped into two types: broadsheets and tabloids. The distinction involves the size of the printed page. A broadsheet newspaper has a large page size, roughly 14 into 22, and is folded in half in the middle of the front page. Most broadsheet papers are printed in several different sections and then assembled. There are different kinds of news, of which one is hard news, which includes all small and big events reported in a brief manner, with only facts used for reporting the story. The features include all the soft news and feature articles. There are sections for editorials and perspective writing. There are also sections of in-depth reporting. Pictures are indispensable for all kinds of stories and all lengths of stories to make them readable and get readers attracted. For example, instead of just writing about fishermen, giving pictures along with the article communicates effectively. Pictures enhance text. They enrich, complement and supplement the news. Working as a photojournalist. As seen in earlier sessions, learning the photographic process is the first requirement to be a photojournalist. These days, the process of photography has mostly become digital, and as a photographer, you should be well acquainted with how cameras function, how different focal lengths, apertures and shutter speeds translate into different pictures, along with what digital images are made up of, how they are to be processed for publication. Photographs taken with smartphones are also being used increasingly. As a photojournalist, you are the author of the story too. As is a habit with most photojournalists, they do not get much involved in the making of a story. They think, as do most others, that the journalist who is writing the story for the newspaper is the sole author of the story. However, with more involvement, a photojournalist can elevate from simply shooting pictures. Prashant Panjiar, who has worked for India's two best magazines, India Today and Outlook, is a self-taught photographer, advises strongly. Do not take up photography if you are not passionate about it. Most importantly, photojournalism is a challenging profession. Opportunities are less, competition is high. Another worldwide acclaimed Indian photographer and a photojournalist, Raghu Rai, offers useful tips for beginners. A protege of Henry Cartier-Bresson, he has worked with Magnum Photos, The Statesman and India Today. He says that you have to make an effort to acquire skills. The vision is your own and you have to be ready to respond to the situation and realize its importance. Raghu Rai emphasizes on being connected with what you are shooting and being creative where you would either capture the mystery or reveal things. Eminent photojournalist T.S. Satyan, who passed away in 2009, said that the camera is the ideal arm of your consciousness. The pictures you shoot are really your experiences captured. You photograph whatever you appreciate. By so doing, you put yourself into a certain relation to the world that feels like knowledge, like beauty, and therefore like power. You can shoot everlasting images if you are visually thrilled with the world and its people. Photography teaches you a new visual code. It changes and enlarges your notions of what is worth looking at, what you have a right to observe. There is a certain grammar and, more importantly, an ethics even in the process of seeing. T.S. Satyan was concerned not about photography but also about the photographer. It takes time for young photographers to develop their vision. They are too easily satisfied, overestimating themselves at the first sign of success. This is not the way to grow and develop, either as a photographer or as a human being. He also said, photography is your sadhana. In addition, you must also evolve as a person. If you don't, then no amount of craftsmanship or technical skill is worth anything. These notable Indian photojournalists have lifted photojournalism to an important act of being and seeing, where your judgment and selection determine the work that you do, which is much more than just doing a job. Some people may be of the opinion that photojournalism is more preferred by men. This is untrue, as from the very beginning, women photographers and photojournalists have taken some of the most well-known photographs. Internationally, we have examples of Dorothea Lange, Margaret Bourke, White, who have travelled far and wide documenting different events of the world. Some of the famous works of Margaret Bourke White include a picture of Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru and other nationalist leaders of India. India's first women photojournalist, Homai Vyarwala, who passed away in 2012, documented the young India, recording the key political and social events around the time of independence. Today, more and more women are taking pictures on their own or working for news organizations. Ashmita Parelkar, Olia Moravan and Janatul Mawa are some examples of contemporary women photographers submitting diverse works. Qualities of a photojournalist. Robert Capa, one of the founders of Magnum Photos and the first great modern war photographer, is alleged to have once said, "If your pictures aren't good enough, you're not close enough." Now let's go over the qualities that will help you to take pictures for newspapers and magazines. You can be shooting for spot news or you can be making a photo essay. Your photographs should have these qualities. 1. Each photograph should have a clear subject. 2. It should have a visual impact by focusing the viewer's attention on the subject. 3. It should be simple with no extra information or clutter. What does it take to succeed? If as a photojournalist you have to possess any special quality, it has to be the instinct for what makes newsworthy photographs. Just knowing the theoretical concepts are not enough. A nose for news and eye for good composition makes a world of difference. The moment is very valuable in news photography. Even a technically moderate picture of the right moment is acceptable, but failing to capture the moment is not. As a photojournalist, you must be well read about the subject you are photographing. You have to be educated about the society you live in, the people and their culture. You should be able to tell their stories with as little words and as many emotions as possible. Artistic ability. As a photographer, you should be able to artistically judge and evaluate your subject. A photographer must have an eye for good photos and be able to take quick decisions on the usage of colors, shades, lights and shadows. These skills can be developed by more and more practical and critical reviewing of your own work. With more experience comes better compositions and frames and better photos. Judgment of what is a good frame and what is a cluttered frame is what differentiates a good photograph from the rest. Computer skills. As a photographer, sometimes you will have to do your own post-production work. During this, you must be careful not to overlook details and must be thorough while editing photographs. In addition, and most importantly, photographers accumulate many photographs and must maintain them in an orderly fashion. You should be comfortable working with computers and software that can help you in your work. As we delve deeper and deeper into the digital world, keeping abreast with the changing technologies is a must for all photojournalists. Knowing the basics of photo editing software to clean up your photograph and optimize it for various purposes saves you a lot of time and money and increases your technical abilities. Also, with computers, you can maintain a digital portfolio of your work ready to be shared with anyone with just a click. Business skills. As photojournalists, sometimes you can work as a freelancer. You need to have basic business and marketing skills to be able to reach out to potential clients and agencies and get paid for your work. You should try to reach out to different publications with a portfolio of your work and build your professional network. However, you should be careful that your business skills do not cloud your ethical judgment. Ethical considerations. A photojournalist is a mixture of a cool, detached professional and a sensitive, involved citizen. A photojournalist must always be aware that the technical aspects of the photographic process are not the primary concerns. A mother crying over the death of her daughter is not simply an image to be focused, a print to be made, and a picture to be published. If the photojournalist produces a picture without a thought for a tragedy, the lesson is lost. But if the photographer cares for her, loss is made more humane and causes the readers to get share in her grief. Photojournalism has reached its highest potential. Media critics and viewers question the use of gruesome images, dozens of photographers hounding celebrities, picture manipulations that present misleading views, visual messages that perpetuate negative stereotypes of individuals from various multicultural groups, and images that blur the distinction between advertising and journalism. The spread of computer technology allows practically anyone to produce and disseminate visual messages in massive numbers for a worldwide audience. Because images evoke immediate emotional responses from viewers, they can have a tremendous impact. For example, Malala Yousafzai's attempts and campaigns to promote girls' education in Pakistan under the Taliban regime, despite multiple life threats, has inspired many. She was also featured in the Time magazine's list of 100 most influential people in the world. But the flip side to such visual power is that images can also offend, shock, mislead, stereotype, and confuse. Kevin Carter, a South African photojournalist, could not live after having taken the picture in Sudan that got him the 1994 Pulitzer Award for feature photography. Right to privacy. As a photojournalist and photo editor, you have to be very careful in choosing which image to publish. What would create the desired impact and what will mislead the public should be the major criteria for selection of pictures. Let's take, for example, Nick Utie's Pulitzer-winning photograph titled Napalm Girl. Here, the editors of the Times probably made a conscious decision to run the photograph, despite knowing it violates the girl's privacy. The decision would have stemmed from the fact that the world needs to know the horrors of the war, and the reaction was immediate. There was a huge hue and cry. So in the end, the photograph served the greater good. But such is not the case always. Sometimes the privacy of people is invaded for the sole purpose of sensationalizing news. Ideally, a picture must tell its own tale and not raise speculations amongst the audience. Victims of violence. Editors need to be sure that images of murder or automobile victims are really necessary to tell the story. Sensational images of victims of violence are shown as much for economic as utilitarian reasons. The media concentration on criminal activity creates an exaggerated perception of crime in the minds of viewers. Rather than focusing on bloody body bags, journalists need to explain the underlying social forces that cause such tragic events to occur. For example, pictures depicting the horrors of Vietnam War brought a change of attitude amongst people. The pictures were horrific to look at. They shocked millions of people. What 1,000 words couldn't achieve, a few pictures did. Here the publishing aimed to bring a greater change. Ultimately, it is the choice of the editor who decides whether or not to print the photo. Working as a photo editor. After the picture has been taken, comes the task of selecting the one appropriate picture that will be published along with the news story or an in-depth feature. Photo editors have an important role to play in selecting the suitable picture out of hundreds or more pictures available for selection. You can also train yourself to be ready to take on the work of a photo editor. You would have to develop your judgment skills, both for content and technical standards in photography. Also, a photojournalist has to help the photo editor by selecting the best photographs that she or he has to offer for publication. The photo editor would then select the picture keeping in mind all the ethical considerations we have discussed. The photo editor would be careful before doing any photo manipulation, as it is not recommended in photojournalism. Photojournalists are expected to work with a strong sense of journalistic values such as truthfulness, objectivity, and fairness. The images you bring in must be accurate, timely, and visually stimulating so that they help viewers relate with the news being told. As a photo editor, you would have to have certain criteria based on these values, which will help you select the right picture that is able to convey what is happening during a particular moment in time. It is important to remember that our photographs serve as evidence that these events we have recorded with our cameras have occurred. While on the subject of photo captions, which are really important for most pictures that we see in newspapers and magazines, we should keep in mind that these too adhere to the journalistic principles and values. Incorrect and false photo captions are unacceptable if we are to keep our reputation as a credible news organization. For example, the World Press Photo Award of Photographer of the Year in 2013 was awarded to Paolo Pellegrin. He is an established photojournalist who has published widely through Magnum Photo Agency. His award-winning picture, The Crescent, became the center of much controversy and debate on ethical considerations, since the picture with the cut line saying The Crescent suggested that the picture was taken at the Crescent, Rochester, New York, but in reality it was taken at the garage of a photojournalism student. Pellegrin is a senior and established photojournalist but lost his reputation because of this controversy. You should be aware and not make such mistakes in your work as a photojournalist or as a photo editor. Publishing your pictures. The job of a photojournalist does not end with just taking photos. The next step is to get your work published. There are several ways in which you can get your work published. You can work for a newspaper, magazine, media agency, or be a freelancer. Many newspapers and magazines have designated number of staff photographers who are expected to cover different news stories as per the requirements of the newspaper. Apart from staff photographers, a news organization also relies on stringers or freelancers for photographs. The news organization may not be able to send its staff photographers to remote parts of the country. So when such a need arises, freelancers can send their photos for publishing. For example, Stephen Amritraj, an Indian freelance documentary photographer, extensively covered the Kudankulam nuclear plant issue and the protests of the common people. His work was widely published in newspapers and magazines and drew attention from authorities and public alike. Photojournalism is a challenging profession and is not limited to working for fixed hours at a fixed place. If you want to join this field, you should be ready for flexible working hours as per the demands of your job. There is not always a fixed schedule of what will happen when. You should also be ready at all times for any unexpected assignments that may come your way and to travel to any place at any time. For example, when natural disasters like the Gujarat earthquake in the year 2001 or the tsunami in the year 2004 happened, several photojournalists reached the locations of these tragedies. The pictures they took showed the entire world about the happenings and also helped in inspiring humanitarian and financial aid for the victims. For a daily newspaper, there is always a deadline hanging over the heads of both the reporters and photojournalists. Every day you will get many assignments in different fields. It can be spot news, a press meet, or a feature assignment. You will have to submit your photographs before the end of the day so that it can be published for the next day's issue. You should be able to work under pressure and also meet the expectations of your editor. You will find this profession creatively fulfilling and rewarding in many ways if you are passionate about it and enjoy your work. Conclusion. Photojournalism is a global practice in which a single community of photographers, editors, publishers, agents and readers enjoy access to every story that appears in print everywhere around the world. You can be a staff photographer with a news agency or be a freelance photojournalist and offer your pictures to news agencies. Either way, you have to tell stories through your pictures. The pictures that you take should complement and supplement the text that it accompanies. And remember, the wrong picture, just like the wrong words, can give rise to serious legal problems. If you have any doubts about whether a picture could be libelous or crosses the threshold for taste and decency, ask your editor. The text and photographs should together present the reader with an understandable, engaging picture of your subject. But the writing and the photos should each stand on their own and also be integrated for presentation. Captions need to be accurate, up to date, should add to the story and must not be cut and pasted from the main copy. When you go out to shoot, do not forget to take care, right from the smallest requirement of taking fully charged batteries or a charged smartphone to a larger considerations of being ethical. Be mindful and pay attention to details. When an event is unfolding before your eyes, you must know when to click in order to freeze the essence of the situation. The decisive moment, as it is called. If you have enjoyed seeing the wide range of pictures here, prepare yourself over a period of time. Start taking pictures today. At the end of the day, you will have the satisfaction that your pictures are telling a story and also making a difference. Without being preachy, you can sensitize, motivate, activate the conscience and subtly show people the need to search their own hearts. Summary. In this session, we learned how pictures are used for newspapers and magazines. Any news item on a newspaper or a magazine is incomplete without pictures. We also saw how pictures have a huge impact on the readers and ultimately help in bringing about change. We got to know about different photojournalists, both men and women in the world, who lifted the profession of photojournalism to whole new heights. We also saw how just taking photographs isn't enough. As a photojournalist, you should know how to edit, present, organize and get your work published. Pick up a camera and start taking pictures. Your pictures can and will make a difference. All the best. Hope you enjoyed the session as well as learned about the potential of pictures for newspapers and magazines. Goodbye.